the Fear and Hunger Termina update. It feels like we've been waiting as long for this as the game itself. Since Miro's been teasing that the update will come soon, again, I decided to do one last roundup of information. Again. In a nutshell, the update is focused on providing new ways to progress through the game. The game itself is intended to be very replayable since you're dying a lot, so this will add more variation on the early, mid, and late games. The entire game, then. In that spirit, everything that's been added is optional. Kinda, and I'll explain the kinda in a minute. While the main story of the game isn't going to be changed, some character arcs and lore will be developed, but the focus is on new areas and difficulty more than anything. Now, the most important addition in this update is, of course, Fear and Hunger Termina is now officially an RPG. It has fishing. There's 5 confirmed fish types, but we only know 4 so far. Rainbow trout and the common roach, with large and small variations. That counts for 4. No word on what the 5th fish is. Maybe it's a moon-scorched fish. The smaller variations are easier to catch than the large, naturally. Also, naturally, there may be secrets and/or items found by fishing. Now, there's actually been some major changes happening to the flow of the game. There's a new difficulty setting and there's new effigy placements. The new difficulty, Terror and Starvation, makes a return from the first game and is straight up harder than the default, but not as hard as Maso mode. Maso will stay the hardest mode in the game, and while Terror will have its own gimmick, it won't get Maso mode's Eyes of Rare, the moon lasers that moon scorch you. Any difficulty adjustments that Terror gets will carry over to Maso mode, making it harder too. There was a lot of feedback about how easy it was to manage hunger and mind in the game, and the new difficulty was intended to address that. There's some more food changes coming in general, like we might not be kicked out of the menu when we eat anymore, which would be a nice quality of life improvement. We've also seen one of the new foods, Svikova. Cooking has been changed, but we'll discuss that when we look at the skill changes. The effigy locations are probably the biggest change to the gameplay overall. As a recap, the mid-game is dedicated to finding the 3 effigies used to unlock the path through the church. They are located in the church basement, the apartments, and the orphanage. The update adds 3 new potential effigy locations. We'll talk about new areas soon, but only one of the locations has actually been shown, so there's legitimately a lot of content we haven't been shown at all yet. When you start a new game, you can choose between different location sets. There's one that is the original locations, so the church basement, the apartments, and the orphanage. The next is all new locations, and the last is all randomly chosen between the 6. That's what I meant before about things being optional. If the effigy is located in a new area, then you've probably got to visit there. But I do have a feeling that there's going to be a new path added that lets you avoid the effigies. There's a new type of weather, which will occur at some point at all over the city. Rain. It'll add a new status effect in combat, which makes fire do less damage and perhaps do some other things. If it's a getting wet status, I do wonder if there's other things that can cause that too. There's at least 4 new weapons, one of which is a fillet knife. No new guns this time, unfortunately, although I think all the current guns cover the bases, so I'm not sure if we really need more. There's new accessories, including a new shield. Cooking will get some items too, so you know what, let's talk about skills right now. Cooking is getting a bit of an overhaul. It can now only be performed at a stove or specific locations, unless you have Henrik's new skill, Outdoor Cooking. That actually makes his skills a lot more useful, especially if food is less common. Apart from Outdoor Cooking, there's a handful of new skills, and a couple have been rebalanced. Olmir is getting a new spell, but we don't have any hints as to what it actually is yet. Black Smog is a ridiculously good spell that can blind enemies and deal AoE damage. Now it's been completely reworked. When you use it, you actually summon a cloud of smog. Apparently, if you abuse it, it can attack you too. You can even teach it an attack. Blindness is super strong in Termina, so this is a welcome change. Speaking of blindness, there's also a mixed bag of nerfs, and thankfully not many. Glass Shards, the other main source of inflicting blindness, Mischief of Rats, and AoE stun, Meat Grinder, and dot damage are all getting nerfed. Blindness, stuns, and dots can easily trivialize most fights, so honestly nerfs aren't that surprising. We don't know exactly how they're being changed yet, so it could be anything from a full rework like Black Smog, or it could simply be number changes, although it does look like dot damage will just be number changes. Honestly, I think nerfs usually are not a good idea, except in cases when a tactic is explicitly better than the rest, and in all of these, they basically were. The new God of Fear and Hunger spell is called Unkindness of Ravens. It's a new kind of phase step from the first game, although it's a little different. You move to the next map in the direction you're facing. This could be easily used to skip to the end game, so it'll be interesting to see how you actually get it. Maybe it's another spell you can unlock from beating a new god, like how Chains of Torment requires beating the Tormented one. Or perhaps it's a post-game reward. We're also getting 2 new ritual circles to help raise affinity. One Ascended and one Old God ritual circle. It's already possible to get a huge pile of spells, and that's before counting glitches, so I wonder if this is going to be too much. I suppose it's less of an issue if the spells are better balanced, and that seems to be the case now anyway. Speaking of ritual circles, let's talk about the new locations. Now, there's been a lot of screenshots showing them. Some are playable and some are more like cutscenes. In general, the new areas are intended to be more unique and ambitious than the base game. This was actually something that people brought up a little bit, that most of the game was just like a regular city, so it looks like this will be addressed. There's also some new Rares Realm locations that we don't know anything about. Now, the 2 new major areas that have been confirmed are the Lakeside Slums and the Gold Bros Tivoli. Tivoli? The Tivoli looks super cool. It's a boardwalk carnival type area, and it's the confirmed fishing location. There's lots of little tidbits we've been shown about this area. It's the site of a new Caligura resting spot, as he was a little hard to find in the base game. It has some strange collectible dolls. It's intended to be desolate rather than fun and bright, but in my opinion it still looks pretty fun. It's even got a fun house with mirrors, so I'm pretty excited for it. And despite the name, there's a chance that the Gold Bros encounter won't actually show up here, since Miro wants to keep the Masso mode exclusive, but we'll actually see when it comes out. The Tivoli is what's considered a dungeon, as in a self-contained area that is designed to be challenging with lots of combat encounters. Similar to the church, basement, orphanage, and apartments. All of those are effigy locations, so it seems like this is basically confirming the Tivoli is an effigy location too. For those keeping track, that's 1 out of the 3 new effigy locations confirmed, and not a single other one has been mentioned anywhere I could find. That suggests that there's 2 other dungeon locations that are coming, but that's speculation, and one of them is probably underground, and another one could be in the Lakeside Slums, so we'll actually see how that plays out. The other new area shown off is the Lakeside Slums. It's a new way into the city from the starting area, similar to Old Town. You obviously won't need the gate keys here, so I'm wondering what the mechanism is to slow down progress. Maybe it's just got a lot of tough enemies. The way you access it is by a boat that looks like it requires multiple people. Recall that Dan can temporarily join you here on day 1 for a free lift. Anyway, the Lakeside Slums themselves look great. They're a shanty village on the lake itself featuring fishman enemies. On the map there's a boat-like structure on the top, and one of the screenshots is of Osar climbing into what appears to be a large fishing boat. All the screenshots seem like it might be a multi-layered area, and it looks dense, so it might be quite the maze. There's also a decent-sized underground area coming too, which lines up with some of the other clues. We've seen a screenshot of what looks like an area underneath the mausoleum alley behind the church. There's also a new enemy that was shown off that might tie into this. So let's talk about the enemies. There's 22 new enemies being added. Depending on how you count the base game enemies, there's about 80 of them, so this update will introduce a full extra 25% to the enemy count. It's not clear how many of these 22 are bosses or reskins and stuff like that, but it's still quite a lot. And this explicitly doesn't count tweaks or changes to existing enemies, like the new neighbor art. We've actually seen quite a few of the new enemies, so let's take a look. We have the Mortar Field, likely showing up in one of the new rare realms. It's apparently not a marriage like the Platoon, so it'll be interesting to find out what it is exactly. It kind of looks logic-based, perhaps. There's the Leech enemy found in one of the new bathhouse areas, which is probably at the Tivoli. We also have the delightful Johann Baihan. He kind of feels like a Lady of the Moon type enemy to me. You know, one that doesn't really attack? Feels too nice to be a real enemy, but I guess we'll see. The signature enemy of the Lakeside Slums appears to be the Swollen, a kind of drowned corpse moonscorch. It's disgusting and it looks like a pain to fight, so you know it's going to be great. Maybe it'll drop its trident, and that's one of the new weapons. Just to rattle off some smaller nuggets, we're getting more doppelgangers. I imagine Abella will finally be added after being in the files for a while. Needles is probably getting a little stronger, and the Trooper's sprite is updated. There's a new ghost enemy, which is probably this guy. And there's what appears to be a new chaser type enemy in the Unkindness of Ravens video. And finally, there's a new RNG boss, which might be the 5th fish we're missing. Which might be the fifth fish we're missing. There's even an Abyssonian enemy being added. Abyssonia is, of course, Osar's homeland, and we know very little about the region. Magic isn't super common there because they tend not to worship the gods, which is why Osar left. This might tie in with the flashback section. It'll be discussed later, but in short, each playable character will have a short flashback to their past at some point. Perhaps each character has a unique boss at the end of their flashbacks. If you recall the flashback section in the first game, when you enter the dream and end up fighting the Skin Granny. A unique boss for each character sounds like a lot of work, but each character does have entirely unique art and scenes for the flashbacks after all. That's just speculation though. Another change is that the Heartless one is going to be renamed. It's the only actual retcon I've seen in the games, and it's happening because the lore of the soul types is finally fleshed out. We'll discuss that a bit more in the lore section, but Heartless herself isn't being removed, and is even getting a little bit more lore. The enemy I'm most excited about, for reasons which will become clear very soon, is the Minotaur. The subject of his very own drawing process video. This fella is 100% a boss, just look at him. Now, when this was released, I wrote up some thoughts on Twitter. An enemy with digging equipment wearing golden dinosaur headpiece ties in really well with the idea that the Bremen were trying to excavate underneath the museum. It's even called the Minotaur, a mythological bull man who roamed a labyrinth. In my post, I suggest it's guarding another path between the heart of the city and the museum. Perhaps even an alternative path that you can take instead of getting the effigies. Miro's response is that I have good deductive skills. While that was very flattering, we'll see how accurate that was when the update drops. It'd probably be the first time one of my theories was right. Another sulfur cult looking enemy is the Ringmaster, who can be seen chasing the player through the mists of the Tivoli. There's also another sulfur cult associated enemy, the winner of the design contest that was held in the Discord some time ago. It's called Apotheosis, although it's not been confirmed it'll keep that name. It's going to appear in an unexpected place. Mysterious. It's what appears to be a person in the process of transforming into a sulfur cult member, but failed. This one will definitely give us some more lore about the sulfur cult, so let's talk about lore right now. This is the one I've been waiting for. Straight up, we are getting fat lore dumps, and it's going to reach Kingdom Hearts levels of convoluted. You have no idea how happy this makes me. Or maybe you do. The lore is expanded in all directions. The overall story of Termina isn't going to change, which I expect means that there won't be any major changes to the existing endings, or maybe even the dialogue in those endings. There is one exception though, and that is potential changes to Ending C to help explain it a bit more. Now, we will likely get clarifications to certain things in the endings since they were all pretty opaque at times. Logic and Kaiser will definitely get some more explanation, as well as the Sulfur Cult. Although I wouldn't expect us to find out what happens after Ending A. I imagine that will have to wait until Fear and Hunger 3. Now, a quick list of all the things that will get small snippets in the update. Venushka and the God of the Depths, Yigegetsu, Abyssonia, Eastern Kingdoms, Black Caliph, Marina's family, Black Priests, the Funga counterpart to China. The museum is getting more information added to it, so this is likely where most of these small snippets will come from. That and, of course, the flashback scenes that each player character is getting. The Sampo from Finnish mythology will also make an appearance. You may recall this from the same story that Karen's Moonscorch form is based off of. Maybe you can find it on the island. One of the biggest lore things we've actually seen already is the full soul chart. You'll remember that each person in the Fear and Hunger universe is born with a named soul. Endless, enlightened, decrepit soul, that sort of stuff. It was never clear exactly how souls worked, how many there were, what all their names were, and people frequently requested a lore drop on it. And Miro delivered. The full list was dropped on Twitter, and he even answered some questions. I get the impression that the actual information in-game isn't going to be much more enlightening than what we've already seen, but it's still really cool. Miro is a mourning soul. I am, surprisingly, an enlightened soul. What are you guys? Now, the flashbacks. We've only seen small snippets of them, but it's not exactly clear what they are. It's likely they're just cutscenes, but there's a small chance they're playable, similar to the flashbacks in the first game. Each playable character will definitely get one, and they're placed at a point in the game where you can have party members, so it definitely doesn't happen on the train. For the most part, they won't show us anything that's brand new information, with one major exception. Osar's flashback will show us part of his homeland, Abyssonia, the equivalent of Northern Africa, and will apparently show us new information. The Abyssonians are ancestor worshippers, so their religion is quite different than anything we've seen in the game so far. Some of the character sprites and backgrounds have been shown off, and they look pretty cool. We've got Dan after finding his dead wife, we've got Levi as a soldier, Osar as a child, and some other pretty interesting looks. Again, they won't reveal much lore, but it looks like there'll be great character moments. I wondered before if each memory will have a unique boss, but thinking about it, that doesn't seem to be quite the vibe. I guess we'll see. We also have baby Miasma out of nowhere. The cursed sword from the first game, who makes an appearance jammed into the back of the lovable scamp Moonless in the second game. Is it a weapon? An accessory? Something in the museum? Who knows? We'll get a little more lore about baby Moonless, but we probably won't be getting the full sword itself. In the first game, the sword Miasma had the unique effect that it could send you mad and make you slaughter your companions. If Miasma was coming back, it seems Miro would want to add that effect again, but he's already got enough on his plate, so probably no usable Miasma sword this time, but who knows about future patches. There's a few miscellaneous things that have popped up that are worth mentioning. Like there's a whole slew of bug fixes. We know what the version number of the game will be. There's a whole bunch of unique art assets that aren't really used much. Everything from the classic laptop meltdown has been completely remade, so we haven't lost any content whatsoever. Seeing all the new content will require a brand new save, which I suspect is just because of the effigy locations, but there might be some other things too that require a new save. We might be getting a consumable cigarette item. People have been requesting that for ages. And most importantly, Black Caleb and Levi both have funny faces in some of the videos, so I am really excited for that. Of course, there's also some new music. Miro showed off an unfinished version of a track called Scaleless Servant. It's pretty cool, but like always, being unfinished, it might be completely different by the time it makes it into the game, if it does at all. Now, there's a few things that aren't super clear if they're happening this update, or have been explicitly deconfirmed that are worth mentioning. Now, as a precursor, just let me say that Miro has always said that his plans changed last minute, so anything that I'm about to say, just take that with a grain of salt. In the first game, there was a dating sim mode called Dungeon Nights, and fans have really wanted it back for Termina. The successor to Dungeon Nights, which is tentatively called Pre-Heval Nights, is coming at some point, but it hasn't been confirmed if it's this update. Very little is known other than it introduces a new character who looks like a game show host of some kind. Something else from the first game was marriages and being intimate. And Miro has said that that's probably not coming back for a few different reasons. So I wouldn't expect marriages to come back anytime soon. Never say never, but probably not. There's plans for a new ending, an equivalent ending to Ending E in the first game. So this was the bad ending, where you just leave the dungeon after you rescue Lagarde. What exactly this might be in Termina isn't super clear. Perhaps you just leave after reaching the tower, or maybe you find a way to fix the train, or something like that. Miro has said he'd like to add an equivalent to Ending E at some point, but again, it hasn't been confirmed for this update. Something that has been explicitly deconfirmed for this update is there's no new characters. No playable Pav, no playable Tanaka, nothing like that. No new characters this patch. It's not happening. It's intended to happen in a future patch. They've been bumped back to the one after this. So we'll have this patch and then probably one or two smaller bug fix patches. And then after that is intended to be another major patch where new characters will be added. So that's the current plan. Again, like I said, Miro likes to change his plan, so who knows, right? So, what are you guys excited about? It's super easy for me. I am so ready for the fat lore dumps, it is not even funny. All of my crazy theories will be confirmed 100% true, and everyone will have to apologize to me. But seriously, it'll be super interesting to see what Miro's been cooking this entire time. It's even just writing this list out, I didn't realize just how much was coming until I sat down and I put it all in this big list and I went through all his tweets. It's huge. There's a lot of content coming in this update, and I don't think we've seen half of it. That's the impression that I get. We haven't even seen half of what's coming. So it's definitely going to have been worth the wait, I think. Thank you again very much for watching. I hope you're excited about this update, as I am. This video couldn't have been made without the support of you guys, and especially the patrons whose names are on screen now. I'm trying to put out more frequent, more rapid, smaller videos lately, so I hope that you guys like the sort of minor changing content. My internet has been so bad, so it was legitimately difficult to do this video because it was all researching Twitter, and I didn't have net for a week straight. So I had to work on something else and then jump back to this when my net came back up. But yes, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope I can make content that you guys find appealing, and if not, please let me know. If you do like it, let me know. If you don't like it, definitely let me know. So thank you guys very much, and I'll see you again soon. Wait, hang on. What was the sign out again? Thank you, and remember. Thank you for watching, and remember, you're never alone in the dark. That was it, right? Yeah. Bye.